John, how's it going?
Good, man. How you doing?
Good. Is this the most important part of your day or what?
Oh yeah, number one. No, I found out that I've been walking around on a broken ankle for the past 3 months, so I had to go get a boot. That's that I got to sit in for the next 3 weeks here. So that is the least important but most important part of my day so far. That sucks, but
Oh
now
man,
I'm ready to. Yeah, it is what it is. It's just like 2020 can kiss my whole ass.
yeah, it's only about you're about 24 hours, 48 hours away from being nicknamed Boot.
Hmm.
I've had a couple of those guys.
Yeah.
Um, hey, thanks for taking some time with me. I know
Yep.
we had some hiccups, right? Getting
Yeah.
here. But appreciate your patience,
Hmm.
and thanks for being here. So glad, extremely excited to have you on the show, and I'll eat my own shoe if you walk away thinking this was a waste of your time. So
No, no worries.
um, before we get into it, I should introduce my guest, John Barrows, the Genghis Kahn of sales, Robert the Bruce of buyer intent strategy and acumen, and the Ben Affleck in Armageddon having the sales acumen to dodge the dark funnel and increasingly smarter buyer. The guy that half my guests have referenced as a mentor, someone like a Superman in their life, and that's the truth.
That's flattering, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, that's I've had Morgan Ingram, Casey Jones, Dale Dupree, and it's like I got to get this John guy on I had Steve Richards last week.
Yeah,
Um,
he's a good friend
so
too.
I am interested though. Before we start, I'm curious, and you can be honest. What were you expecting from today's show in terms of a scale of 1 to 10? One, why do I do these things? And 10, this was one of the best podcasts I've done in 5 years, and he actually taught me something.
Taught me something. So podcasts are usually, if I have my podcast because that's how I learn. So I actually started it because I don't learn by reading books. I actually learn by interviewing other people. So that's, for me, that's on my end. But, I'd say, I do these a lot. So, it's probably in the 7 range of, my
Nice.
expectations are good questions and good dialogue and no bullshit. And hopefully we can both learn something from each other and help the audience as well.
Well, hey, my niche, my goal is always to get the guest to say, I've never been asked that before, or this is the
Yeah.
first time I've ever said that. So,
Cool.
um,
What's the main audience, just so I can know from a demographic standpoint?
oh yeah, good question. So the show is called Sales Intersection,
Yep.
and it's put on by my company, video and podcast sales are evolving. It actually started a lot like your company, less successful with sales enablement, sales coaching, sales mentoring on an individual, team, corporate business level, and then evolved to really kind of focus on kind of what Morgan Ingram focuses on, which is video. He's all about
Cool.
video,
Nice. Yeah.
and trying to help individuals, teams, corporations understand how to most effectively, uh, you know, go through that transformation with these new digital tools. Not
Cool.
new, but
Hey. No, I
new
get it. Yeah. Yeah.
prospecting and that kind of thing. So that's the business. This is the podcast, the audience, a lot of VP of sales, CROs, people that I've done business with in the past, colleagues, my mom, that kind of
Cool.
thing.
Yeah, of course. Mom's
Yeah,
always listening, right?
try not to cuss too much. So you know, of course, I have a list of questions that, depending on conversation flow, may or may not be asked. But let me ask you, what is most exciting to you in sales right now? If you were the host, what would you like to be talking about? I know I recently heard you talking about account-based marketing, oriented topics with an event coming up with Zoom Info, and I find
Yeah.
I find that to be one of the most fascinating industries out there, and I actually worked in it for a while with one of the forest quadrant leaders.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on it, and should we be relying on it more, if that is one of the things that you're
Yeah, I mean, account-based marketing is definitely, I mean, I think that's a piece of the overall evolution of where we are right now. And I think what I'm talking about a lot these days is kind of how COVID was a forcing function. Things were evolving, and reps were becoming robots with a lot of the tools and technology out there. And I've always talked about death of the average sales rep. But I thought it was because of technology, right? Just slowly but surely, technology was going to eat away more and more at what we did, and the cream was going to rise to the top. But the average reps were going to start to get replaced, and now COVID hits and kind of fundamentally disrupts a lot of what we were doing and breaks kind of the predictable revenue model here. And is forcing us all to kind of re-examine the value of the different roles, the structure of the teams, what different people do, how marketing is aligned, and how SDRs, are leveraged and all that stuff. So it's more about the transformation that sales is going through right now, which I think aligns with your video and using the different tools and the technologies and finding new and innovative ways to engage with clients and add value and all that stuff.
And how much, I mean, if you're going to be evaluating one of those tools, what kind of questions are you going to be asking? I mean, how much, if the dark funnel is a big topic in that whole industry, where the buyer goes 60-70% of the way in their evaluation process, and then these guys catch them at what, 15-20%.
Yeah, I mean, I think it all depends, obviously, on what you sell and who you sell to. I mean, that stat is good for inbound. It's not true for outbound, obviously, because outbound, you're trying to create the need, whereas inbound, they've identified it. So with inbound, 60-70% gone, G2 and those type of things, and intent data and understanding, what people are actually, as opposed to guessing what their needs are. You now have tools like G2 and a few others, where Zoom too, where you can actually see that they're searching for very specific things, tech target, and then you can be very, very targeted with who you're going after and create that value proposition. But, I think it's all about where you are as a business, what you're selling, who you're selling to, and therefore, what tool do you need to solve whatever the problem it is? And based on that, it's not just, I think too many companies right now are investing in tools just to invest in tools. And now we have this tech stack that's that's a nightmare. And, and you get tools that do 70% of one thing, 20% of another, and it's this, and nobody's really using them the right way. And so, it's the technology is a piece of the equation, but there's usually a fundamental structure that needs to be in place before technology can actually help. Too many people, I think, are looking at technology for the answer, which it's never really the answer, in my opinion, at least.
Yeah, for me, there's never really been a silver bullet. I mean, I'm a LinkedIn ninja, navigator kind of guy. Scripts and I'm not Dell to pre-level where I'm leaving empty donut boxes on people's desks and like that. But I have my essential tools, and then the nice to haves. For you, what are the essential ones?
I'm a little bit more old school from a personal standpoint. My essential ones are more insights into businesses. So like, Owler and Crystal Nose and, those type of things. So I can get alerts on, Feedly, that type of stuff. I don't rely as much on the sales lofts. I love Gong. It's a great coaching tool, but I love their blog more than anything else. So it's more to me, I want to figure out all the tools that I can use to figure you out before I engage with you, right? To figure out what your persona is, what your company's going through, what some of the challenges that you're faced with are, and then just good old research. You know what I mean? Like good old, LinkedIn obviously is figuring out what your social profile looks like, what is important to you. I mean, the good news right now is everybody's home, but everybody's talking. Right. And so all you got to do now is find out where they're talking and go find that information and then make some connections to that. And it's actually not that easy. It's not that hard these days to connect with people if you actually take an approach where you care.
Yeah. So. And it's a little dangerous, right? If you're supposedly catching them at the 60-70% mark of their evaluation process, and you're you think you know this, but you come in and actually you're completely
Oh
wrong.
yeah. Well, the 60 to 70% is, again, dangerous to me in general, because if they are already down that path, then you're probably playing catch up to the other one or two vendors that they've already engaged with before you. You know what I mean? So like by the time 60 to set, they have a pretty good sense of the vendors that they want to talk to and what they're looking for.
Yeah.
So that's, again, why inbound versus outbound is an important distinction on that, because outbound is, you create the need, you get people to think, you are strategic with it, and you can be the one who creates that, to say, hey, by the way, have you thought of this? It's like, oh shit, I didn't, maybe I should look into this. And now you're leading. So now you're starting at 0% with them, and, you can guide them through the process. 60 to 70%, you're fighting an uphill battle.
Yeah, I got that. There's a lot of different solutions out there. And a lot are coming up big, especially on the West Coast. Terminus, Demand Gen, 6sense,
Yep.
and Zoom Info
Yeah.
making a run with their with their move with Discover.org.
Discover.org, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're definitely there's a lot of players coming into this space, but there's a lot of room in this space too, for people. I mean, there will be a consolidation thing coming up here soon, just like the MarTech. It's like, you had a whole bunch of players, and then one by one they kind of the cream rise to the top, and then there was acquisition. I think the same thing with the sales tech stuff these days is, everybody's trying to figure out whatever the angle is, and then within the next couple of years there's going to be some pretty big acquisitions going on.
Yeah, I was in the IT space at Distill Networks. We got acquired by Imperva, and the same thing's happening in that field. So, let me ask you this: what made you guys so successful? I mean, what for one? Let's take. I was talking to Steve Richard, for example, and he said Gong is a competitor.
Mm-hmm.
And Gong essentially listens to conversations, and then they try to improve the performance of their reps. But Steve's company basically says that's where the problem is. It's not happening.
Mm-hmm.
Where you guys are kind of coming in and also saying to the managers, you guys aren't really doing your job as effectively as maybe we could. Does that sometimes rub the managers or anyone the wrong way?
Yeah, don't say that. They out there. We don't do we don't do coaching / consulting. We do training, right? And there's a difference. Coaching / consulting is, let me come in, let me analyze your processes and figure out what you're doing right and what you're doing wrong, and put together a plan and coach you. And effectively, your managers aren't in a good position to be successful, so let us help you do that, right? Every manager knows that they don't get the training, they don't get the coaching. Most reps don't get the training that they need, and managers are even worse as far as what the tools and the resources that we give them. Usually it's the best rep that gets promoted to be the manager, and that's almost never the best case scenario, right? Because usually the best rep doesn't know how to articulate or replicate what they do, and so they just end up being a deal chaser to jump in on deals and help close business, because that's what they know how to do. We do training. So ours is, we come in, we train the team, we give them techniques, we give them tips, we give them some coaching on how to obviously implement it, but mine's more of like a shot in the arm, and trying to upskill the team to drive some results. And then how they integrate this moving forward is more their problem, not mine, right? Because I tell them, I'll give you all the tools in the world to implement this, but if you don't want to put in the effort to integrate and make sure that this is tracked and measured and that type of thing, I'm not going to hold your hand with it. So that's your problem. You know what I mean? That's why we fit in the middle of, I believe sales methodologies are dead. I think old school sales, I think singular sales methodologies are dinosaurs, right? Like if you subscribe to a singular sales methodology, you're not agile enough. None of them are agile enough to help you scale as a business or adjust to whatever the market's going to do. So to me, it's all about agility, and we're like taking pieces of all the other trainings that are out there and compiling what your sales process is, and then testing and trying and testing and trying. The Miller Hymans of the world, they charge you $500,000 year-long implementation, soup to nuts. And then a year later, a new VP comes in or the market shifts, and it's like you just wasted all that time, energy, and money. Where we are very tactical, and it's like, hey, just go do this, try these different things, whatever. And it tends to resonate a lot more with where people are right now.
Yeah, I'm a big fan knowing the big methodologies, knowing how to pivot when I need to. But for me, it comes down to technology changes quickly. Office culture changes quickly, but human psychology does not. And so I try to focus on
No.
the books and the books that are more oriented around buying psychology and
Oh yeah.
um,
Yeah, Influence is my favorite book. Influence by Robert Cialdini is one of my favorite books.
I'll have to check that out.
It's all about psychology. It's not about, yeah, it's
Uh-huh.
not, it's one of the best. Yeah, it's all about, it's not, I mean, it's all directly related to sales, but it's not about sales. It's all about influence and the psychology around that.
What would you say right now is something that's
By the
being
way, is this the podcast, or are we like, because I do have a hard stop at 5 o'clock. I just want to make sure we're clear.
yeah, this is the podcast.
Okay, I didn't know because I didn't hear the intro or anything like that. I didn't know
Oh,
if this
I'm
was just
sorry.
going right in. No, yeah,
I'm
no, I
sorry.
didn't know if you were practicing that intro and then going into it or what. But yeah, no, all right, cool.
I should have been more clear. I was kind of trying to talk to you for a while, then anyway, it was
Yeah, no worries. I just want to make sure we're making, keep an eye on the clock.
yeah.
Cool.
So you mean in 40 minutes?
Yeah, exactly. 5 o'clock
Okay.
East Coast. Yep.
Okay. Yeah. Well, we're fine. We're fine.
Cool.
Is there something, a topic that's being discussed out there, trending social wise, or from maybe some of the sales leaders that you respect or at least know, that you feel is just given too much attention to, that it's going in the wrong direction?
Yeah, the personalization at scale. I hate that. There's everybody. Well, I mean, you had said it earlier, the silver bullet. A lot of people are looking for the silver bullet, and they're looking to do, I think the phrase personalization at scale in general is a oxymoron. Like, you can't be personalized at scale. You can be relevant at scale. You can be persona driven at scale, that type of stuff. But personalization means personalization. Personalization means, Eric, you're the only one that could have gotten this email. You know what I mean? And I think there's ways we can make that efficient, but I think everybody's looking for, that tool, that thing, that they can push a button. And so are reps. They're looking for, I get all the time, hey, John, do you have an email that I could send to, VPs of sales and finance that is, that gets you the highest response? John, what's the best subject line to use? And, and like, these are all questions basically saying, hey, I'm too lazy to put in the work. So, is there something that's this magic bullet that I can just send and get results from? And the laziness factor is killing me these days, because, I talk again, death of the average sales rep, and the COVID exposed a lot of the problems based on sales reps going through the motions, right? Like, all the people are getting laid off. And don't get me wrong, I think there's a good portion of people, obviously, that got laid off through no fault of their own, right? They were good at what they did, and the company, for whatever reason, had to restructure and lay them off. But for the most part, the other ones who got laid off are, those are the bottom of the pie. Those are the average reps, the ones who are just going through the motions, just kind of hitting their numbers and doing that thing. And so I think the balance right now of trying to balance quality and quantity is a struggle that everybody does. But I think everybody's still trying to figure out, what's that AI tool? What's that thing that I can push that button that'll, be fantastic. And that, I wish we would stop trying to look for the silver bullet and just go back to putting in the work.
Yeah. I mean, I'm kind of a fan of the sales 5 love languages. You gotta know what the I'm a quality time words of affirmation guy, but I know the other languages too. And I mean, you really do have to put in the work, and it's quality or quantity. I'm reading right now. You can't teach a girl to ride a bike in a seminar.
Yeah, that's the Sandler one. Yeah,
it's an old Sandler one. I do it on Audible because I do this.
Yeah.
I do these walks midday and morning and night to keep my sanity in COVID time.
Yeah, we do these days.
Yeah. So anyway, it's quality over quantity, and right now it's tough, but if it weren't for COVID, I'd be going to meetups, or there's a lot of tools that that can go a long way. You know, a fruit basket's not going to do it.
Right.
But
Well, I think that's, that's the difference, right? I mean, everybody does talk, going back to personalization at scale, people are rightfully so focused on personalization, but the problem is personalization without relevance is actually almost even worse, right? Because you get this email from, I get a ton of emails these days from people saying, be like, hey, John, I see you went to the University of Maryland, go Terps. And then they hard cut to some value proposition about some software development tool that they created that has literally nothing to do with what I would even come close to valuing, right? And so that's why I think AI fails, because AI can go find that personal thing about you, Eric, but it can't connect the value of that thing to what you have to offer, right? So that's where the human element comes into play here.
Yeah. So when you wake up, what are the 5-10 websites that you open up first?
There's 6 of them. It's Salesforce, LinkedIn, Owler. I have Facebook and Twitter because I use those to track all my top tier accounts. I don't use them for personal purposes. I track all my top tier accounts on those tools as well. And then another one, Feedly, Feedly. So those are the 5. And I just kind of scan through every morning from 6:30 to 7:30 every morning. I take my top 25 tier 1 accounts. I put them on all those tools. I track them. And I just kind of scan through those data feeds every morning while I drink my coffee, and I look for things that I can, make connections to. So, hey, I just saw that happen. We should have a conversation about it. Feedly is an RSS feed that, I follow certain topics and things that I'm interested in, that my audience is interested in too. So, for me, AI is something I'm really fascinated in. So I go follow all the thought leaders in AI, sales blogs, obviously, and stuff like that. And yeah. And so that's what, for an hour a day, I probably fire off 2 or 3 really high quality emails to some tier 1 accounts of mine. I then, read an article or 2 that I learned something from, and share a few things out there on social to kind of build my brand and stay connected with prospects as well.
Another thing I like to do is I put the person's name in, and then I put podcast and see if they've been in any podcast we've interview.
Yeah, absolutely.
And go to minute 18, not minute 2.
Yeah.
And he says, like, wow, he listened all the way to minute 18. This guy, he doesn't have a girlfriend, that's for sure.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Well, the funny, like I said earlier, people are talking, and all you got to do is spend the time to, if you really care, and if you really want to engage with people, listening for 18 minutes into a podcast and pulling something out of that and making a reference. I will say that's the easiest and fastest way to get in touch with me. You know what I mean? Hey, John, I saw you were on, I heard you on XYZ podcast and you talked about this. And one of the things I wanted to chat with you about is this, because our solution does that. Or, I thought it'd be worth a conversation. Like, that's the easiest way to get me. Right. But it's rare that people do that. I went on vacation about 2 months ago and for 2 weeks, and I didn't check my emails once. And I came back and there was 2,000 emails in my inbox, 2,040 emails in my inbox. And I did an assessment of, what buckets did they fall into, right? So marketing emails, list services, LinkedIn requests, stuff like that. And I got, out of the 2,040 emails, I got 78 what I would consider sales emails, right? Like somebody offering, want to meet or whatever. And of those 78, zero were personalized.
Wow.
And to me, like, look, I'm not that important. I'm only 7, I got only 7-person company here, but look, it's not like I'm quiet out there, right? Like I'm out there on all the social channels. I talk a lot about what my needs are, what my challenges that we're dealing with. I'm pretty transparent with my business. And I'm not shy about spending money either. I spend a crap load of money on a lot of different, on a lot of different stuff, because I believe it's going to get us to that next level. Right. And and I train personalization, and the fact that I got out of 2,000 emails, I didn't get one personalized. That tells me that there's a systemic issue here, that reps are like, everybody thinks that, oh yeah, personalization, but really all they're looking for is, what can I push a button so I can send out my 50 emails today and hopefully get a response from somebody. Like, that's where we are.
That is despicable.
Yep.
And there is the other side where the boss is saying, activity level, how come you didn't reach 50 email, or
that's the bigger problem. I think the reps are lazy, but it's also the management's push on them. And my whole thing on this is, I don't know how old you are. I'm 44, right? So when I grew up in sales, no, it was a numbers game, right? It was because the internet wasn't really out there all that much. There wasn't a ton of information. So if I was calling you, Eric, like there's a strong possibility you had never heard of something that I had, right? So for me, so back in that days, 2000-ish, making a 50 dials, 100 dials, whatever was yeah, so we grew up that way. And now we've evolved and everybody understands that quality is the answer. But the problem is now Gen Xers, we're the managers, we're the leadership now, right? And we understand that quality is the answer. But you know what's hard to coach to? Quality is hard to coach to. Quality is hard to develop, right? You know what's easy to coach to? Hey, make 50 dials today. Did you make your 50 dials today? Did you send your 100 emails today? And if you didn't, I'm going to smack you, right? Because it's just a lazy way of managing.
Robotic.
And what happened with COVID, when everybody went home, pipelines stopped. So managers panicked and activity level went through the roof and response rates went through the floor. And I think if you just took that back instead, no, let's focus on quality first, you're going to stand out from everybody else who's panicking right now trying to send out 1 billion emails just to get that 2 or 3 connections every once in a while.
You know what I find it's actually easier when my sites that I open up are, one of them is my Gmail, and I try to delete as quickly as possible the ones that I don't want. And if there's one that is 3 paragraphs, and it's saying the same shit, it's gone, So
gone, not even close.
Make it personalized, tight, quick to the value, and 2 sentences.
Yeah. 2 scrolls on the iPhone at most, try to go for 1, that type of thing.
Yeah. So that's what I'm all about. And I also like to say, hey, I'm reaching out. This is why I wouldn't reach out to you. This is why our product wouldn't work.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be reaching out if A, B, and C were true. I'm not reaching out to these companies, I'm reaching out because blah, 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 blah.
Yep.
Is that enough to have a 5-minute conversation?
Yep.
I want you to tell me no right away, because I want to spend more time disqualifying right now than I do qualifying.
Oh, all the time. I made that switch probably 5-6 years ago, where I stopped trying to quote unquote qualify people. And I started trying to disqualify. I tried to find all the reasons why we shouldn't work together, because eventually you're going to find those out anyways. Somewhere in the sales process, something's going to come up. Somebody's going to ask the right question or whatever it is. And it's going to be like, oh yeah, that's probably why we shouldn't do any business together. So, I probably turned down, 3 out of 4, I'd say 50%. I'd say about 50% of the qualification discovery calls that I have end with me being like, yeah, we're not a good fit for this. I could probably cobble something together and you could feel, and you'd like it, you know what I mean? But it wouldn't be a home run. And these days, reputation, reviews, feedback, those type of things are so valuable. So like one bad review on whatever, because they thought it was a mediocre training, kills you. We're on G2 Crowd. We're like number 2 on G2 Crowd as far as trainers are concerned. And the reason that we're number 2 is because we had one review that was a 2. You know what I mean? Like all were 4s and 5s. And we had one kid who showed up midway through a training. It was like an older AE that was in an SDR training. And he was like, this is irrelevant, like blah, blah, blah. And he went on G2 and wrote it. And it was just like, and that took us from like a 4.95 star down to like a 4.8, just with that one review. And we got like hundreds of reviews. So you don't have that luxury these days to do work that is mediocre, right? Because word spreads way too fast and there's way too many other options. And so that's why I'm hunting for the clients that I can make a difference for, that they're going to walk out going, holy smokes, like that was crazy valuable.
And there's also some onus on the tools, right? Lyft, Uber. I give them 5 stars
all the time. Yeah.
they'd have to puke.
They'd have to do so. Yeah, exactly. They'd have to do something pretty bad for me not to give them 5 stars. As long as it's an average, I didn't get mad. You know what I mean? As long as something bad didn't happen, you're getting 5 stars from me.
Yeah. So like when I use Glassdoor as part of my algorithm to identify maybe an opportunity I want to pursue. This company has 10 people and they have 10 reviews with 5 stars. I'm not going to really like believe that.
Yeah, no.
So I'm just, I'm wondering how you're probably better than the first place guy, and you got 1 2 star. What can these guys do to make this more accurate, to make the
I don't know if they can, you know what I mean? I think the best that you can do is, and I just look at human behavior too. I know what I do when I go to Amazon, right? I look at the reviews and it kind of, whoever's in the 4+ range, I kind of consider, and then I look at the reviews and what I do, I scroll all the way down and I see what are the negative ones, and I see, are those negative ones realistic, right? And most of them on Amazon, it's like, oh, the package came, dented, or, something that wasn't the product, right? So I disregard those. So it's the same thing with, I think what you need to do as an organization is monitor that extremely closely and be very thoughtful with your response to those, right? So what we do is anything that's even remotely negative, I personally go into all those reviews and say, hey, sorry you had a bad experience here, not sure what the situation was, we really aim to blah, blah, blah. If there is anything that we can do to improve this, I'd really appreciate it. Here's my email address, reach out to me directly, right? So that if you see that, because I'm still up on the top 3, right? I just want to make sure I stay up there. So now you're evaluating 3 vendors, and when you look at the reviews, you're going to scroll down and you're going to see that negative one, but then you'll see my thoughtful response to it. And you'll be like, holy crap, you know what I mean? The CEO of the company responded to this, SDR who was kind of annoyed with something, you know what I mean? Like, then that to me carries a lot of weight, right? If I'm a buyer, I'm looking at that saying, wow, the CEO is actually, engaged and giving feedback and learning how to get better. Like, that to me is a company I want to work with.
And right now during COVID, probably a little bit more focused on retention than acquisition, right? And so you want your customers to see, well, this guy's willing to go to bat for me.
Yep. I'd say the majority of business that people are finding these days is with existing accounts, right? Because the new business, the pipeline, that we're busier than ever trying to help people get new business, because that pipeline has dried up pretty significantly. Like, net new with nobody ever knowing you before. But most companies are getting, are getting through this with their existing accounts because there's trust there.
Yeah, it's like the top 5 of their accounts are paying 80% of their revenue. What kind of retention strategies have you employed that were different than pre-COVID that you can say?
I think we're using our audience. I hired a director of customer success back in December last year. So that was kind of a big step for us to make sure that it wasn't just me popping in and out and saying, see you later, and then sending an email, 30 days later saying, hey, do you need anything? So we have a kind of pretty direct follow through process now that our director of customer success manages. But I think the thing that we're doing slightly differently is we're actually leaning in on our existing accounts to work together to help, right? So for instance, when things were bad, like March, April, May timeframe, we called up and said, hey, any company that we had done business with in 2 years, we were like, hey, how y'all doing? Like, what's the vibe on the team right now? And do you need like something to help motivate them? Like that type of stuff, right? And offering for our clients who were hurting, we'd offer a free 1-hour Q&A just to get the team motivated. You know what I mean? Just to give them something, right? Where myself, Morgan, whoever would get on for an hour, we'd do a little Q&A motivation and get people popping, right? And we just gave that away for free. And that all those free sessions that we gave away in April, May, June are all coming back to us now with people saying, hey, thanks so much for helping us through that. Now we're ready to do training, right? So,
cool. Yeah.
And then the other piece is really just, I think it's funny. We in sales, we guess a lot, right? So we come up with messaging and we try it out. So we send it to a CEO and we hope that messaging is going to work or whatever. But there's a group of people that know, what would resonate and what would be a good message, and it's our existing accounts. So what I'm encouraging a lot of clients to do is, let's engage customer success in our existing customers and go find like the personas that you mostly focus on. So like me, it'd be like VPs of sales, CROs, and VPs of enablement, right? And go find like 4 or 5 of each one of those people in your existing account base, right? And then come up with messaging that you think will resonate with that persona, and then share it with them and say, hey, here's some messaging that we came up with based on the challenges that we understand your role faces. We're about to put together a sequence, a cadence to do that. And before we did that, though, we wanted to run this by you and get your feedback from it, right? And then doing like a Zoom video session with those people and having the sales team ask them questions like, you know, how have your challenges changed between now and, you know, when COVID was, and, you know, what value do you get out of our solution right now that you couldn't live without now that we're in COVID? So all that insight that we can gain from the people who use our stuff, who are in the roles that we're going after, we can extract that, and then we can start going after new, right? And say the same thing, like, hey, because now it's proven. Now, I won't say proven, but now it's validated, right? Our messaging is validated by people who know, right? As opposed to us guessing about it. So I think that's another way that we're trying to leverage our existing clients different than we did before.
Well, I think, you know, a lot of people will say prospecting is the hardest part of the job.
I agree.
And you can make it a lot tougher if your first impression is shitty, right? So you want to do all that due diligence that you were just referencing to make sure that first impression, maybe it's not going to hit a home run, maybe it's not going to hit, but it's going to get some respect, and the person's going to look at the next email. But if it's just way off, you're gonna you know, a delete, and you're wasting your time trying to get 7 touches. You know?
Exactly. Yeah. And, I mean, if you I mean, people do pay attention, right? So like, to your point, if it's way off, or it's just like, you know, again, personalization for no reason other than personalize, you know, that's, you're going to get kicked out, you know, or you'll get put in a spam folder and never looked at again.
And you know, it's amazing. I mean, LinkedIn, I was trying to invite people to my page, and I would say probably 70% easy are people I don't remember. I don't know,
easily.
you know, but you can use, you know, effectively to have those conversations you were just talking about. Like, what would you mind having you know, I'll give you a $5 Starbucks gift card, something like that. So there's a lot of techniques to, I think, get that personalization. And I think it's extremely important to have that first touch, include that personalization, and then the discovery call decides, I think, a lot of what goes on after that, because you want to get as many people in the room, right? You want to know that you have a blank canvas, and you want to look around and know you got an analyst, you got a VP of sales, you got a CFO, you all the psychologists, and you got to know how to paint that canvas differently each time. And those psychologies in the room.
Absolutely. Know how to adapt, right? I mean, you gotta adapt your sales approach to who you're in front of. Because connecting with them is a huge challenge these days, specifically remotely. What
do you think works for you? I feel like you naturally get psychology, you get people, you understand how things kind of work. But what do you think is your biggest unique value proposition, you know, that you bring to sales? Which is why it's called sales intersection. It's about salespeople, and the intersection is what they bring to the table.
Yeah, I mean so again, what's the biggest differentiator? So say that again. What was the question?
What for you? What like people talking about John Barrows, like, oh, you know what, John is so good at it, blah 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 blah. What's going to be your legacy? I mean, what do you bring to the table that is more unique than anyone else?
Authenticity. Yeah. I think there's so many people out there that are so full of shit. It's coming out their ears. Most sales trainers get into sales training because they can't sell. And so, you know, they work at organizations that are good at telling people what to do, but not actually doing it. And also, you know, this whole fake it till you make it is everybody's trying to figure out. And you know, look, I'm not a rocket scientist here. I'm just a kid who went to a state school, drank my way through college, and works my ass off. And you know, I have a unique ability, I think, to break down the art of science into the art of sales into the science of sales and make it repeatable. And so I can give you a structure and a process to follow that'll get you pretty close, but then you have to put in the work to take it to the next level. So I think, being real and giving reps actual techniques and tips and things to do that they can see make a difference, right? Because we're all looking for those little wins along the way, right? Obviously, the big wins are, if you're an SDR, the meeting with that tier 1 account, like that feels great, right? When you're an AE, it's that closing that deal. It's like, oh, but those are so few and far between that you got to look for those little extra wins along the way so that you can constantly be getting better. And it's like, and that's what I try to focus on is like, what's the structure to follow? And then how do you just kind of test out different things here and there, but do it in a way that matters, do it in a way that's not cheesy, not, like the perception of whatever sales is, right? I mean, I wrote, everybody was asking me what I was, if I was going to write a book. And I, at first I was like, what the hell am I going to write a book about? First of all, I don't read all that much, so I think I'd be a little bit of a hypocrite. But second of all, like, what am I going to write that already hasn't been written 8 million times before about sales? And so instead of doing another sales book to make myself feel good about myself, I decided to write a children's book. And the book's called I Want to Be in Sales When I Grow Up. And I wrote it with my daughter, and it was about her learning how to sell Girl Scout cookies. And the goal of that is, our why here at JB Sales is to elevate the profession, right? Sales done right. And our opinion of what right is, but it's, it's with ethics, it's with hard work, it's with all these things, right? And, the book is to try to really introduce sales to kids at a root level, because no kid ever says, I want to be in sales when I grow up, right? Like they don't even know. It's usually the default profession. And I think sales, when done right, is the greatest profession in the world. When done wrong, it's the worst. And so I'm trying to introduce it to, kids in a positive way, and really try to make an impact and elevate the profession. Bless you.
That's one of the more fascinating things I've heard on my episodes, because I've asked people, one of the questions I've asked is you probably weren't in 8th grade thinking I was going to be a salesman.
No way.
What profession, what did you almost get into?
I mean, marketing.
And 20 years ago, if you lined up 10 people,
yeah,
and you asked them, what's your perception of sales?
Spotlighting. So myself as the host, I can make someone a co-host, and then the host.
More negative or more positive?
I think it's probably I think it's probably about the same. I think there's still a huge perception of negativity, and I understand why. It's because we are the least educated in what we do. I mean, there's still very few universities that offer degrees in sales. And so if you think about it, if you get a kid who went to school for whatever major they thought they wanted to be when they grew up, and they get out and they realize, either I don't want to do this or I can't make enough money doing this. Hey, I'm pretty good with people. Let me get into sales. But the problem is because there's a lack of education, most people are, okay, here's your territory, here's your quota, good luck. And when that happens, you take somebody that is a relatively good person, right? That rarely lies or cheats or any of that stuff. You put them in a situation where you give them a territory and a quota, and you tell them go, and very limited guidance. And by the way, if you don't hit your quota, A, you won't get paid, and B, you'll probably get fired pretty quick. You get some kids who are relatively good people doing some very unnatural things, you know what I mean? So they'll start to cut corners. They'll start to, do whatever it takes. And that's why there's this perception, because it is a reality. You know what I mean? There's a large portion of our population that are just jerk salespeople that are just trying to cram something down somebody's throat so they can get their commission checks. And, so I don't think it's changed much over the years. I think it's getting better in our space. But if you were to poll the general ethos and audience, they'd say, yeah, sales is, politicians, lawyers, sales.
Yeah. You wrote about a story maybe about a month ago. You were on a trip. I think you went to like 9 cities in nine days or something like that.
Yeah.
And you're up till 3 a.m. one night. And you woke up and you realized you wrote the wrong presentation for the wrong company.
Yeah.
Remember this?
I do. Yeah. It's happened actually a couple of times.
And you were getting down on yourself, but for me, it made me think, should we be thinking about it like that, or should we be thinking about it like, you know what, maybe, you know, what's her name, Ariana Huffington. We should bring in some of her sleeping philosophies and make sure that if we are going to do a meeting, we're going to be present. We're going to give them 100%, and not only are we going to not mix up the presentation, we're going to blow them away.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, I've been a pretty bad self-care person. I usually grind pretty hard, don't sleep much, don't really, you know, I definitely don't exercise as much as I did, and I'm a trash bucket when it comes to food. I'm a workaholic, and that's not a good thing. You know, this COVID thing has actually been a huge blessing for me, because I was flying all around the world, traveling, you know, every single week to somewhere. And I got a 10-year-old daughter now, you know what I mean? And for the past 5 years, I haven't seen her most weeks. I see her on the weekends. I'm always home on the weekend and stuff like that. And it was killing me. And I was trying to get off of a plane, but I was doing a terrible job at it, right? Because I kept saying, well, I got to go make some more revenue so that we can afford these things and make these investments as an organization. And now COVID hits and solved that problem for me. So now, you know, I do have time to focus on my health and be more present and those type of things. And that matters, right? I mean, I think the ultimate measure of success is happiness, right? And you know, if you're working your ass off and you're not happy with what you're doing, it doesn't matter how much money you make, right? That to me, I mean, I know millionaires who are just miserable pricks, you know, but I also know a buddy of mine who makes $40,000 a year and is a contractor and loves his life. You know what I mean? He goes home every day to see his wife and daughter. He lives in a decent house and he's happy. And to me, like, if I don't care if you make 40 grand a year and if you're happy, you win.
Yeah. For me, it's, I don't pretend to know the secret of happiness, but I feel like it starts with knowing yourself. And
oh, absolutely. That's something that I think you mature into. You eventually have to figure out who you really are and what your core values are and that type of thing. And I recommend everybody, you know, go through kind of a core values exercise to understand what drives you, what's your why, what's your core values, because once you really solidify those, you can start to marry that up to your decisions, right? The companies you work for, the clients you work with. And for me, you know, I have my 12 personal guidelines to success, and that's driven me my entire career. And it helps me evaluate people, situations, opportunities, and everything else. Because if I genuinely believe if your core values align, then we can do some fun things together. We can do some special things together. And by the way, we can argue along the way. But if our core values are the same, we're going to do some cool stuff. But if our core values are off, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It won't work.
Yeah. There's a point in my life, probably maybe 7 years ago, when I just something, I wanted to be happier. And I knew I was trying everything in the book. And my sister and my brother-in-law kept talking about meditation. At the time, he said meditation to me, it was like nails on a chalkboard, right?
Yeah.
And I got into it, and I meditate every day.
Yep.
And it's a way for me to keep those core values top of mind, and also address some of the things that I'm not naturally good at. Patience, for example. Sales, you know, it's like, you know, I'm not just like walking around slowly. I'm like, you know.
Oh no, I mean, I know this is, you know, probably taboo for some, but you know, here in Massachusetts it's legal. I mean, I smoke weed for a very specific reason, because it puts me in a different mindset. It helps me deal with the stress. And, you know, it's kind of like having that drink after work, but it's to me a much healthier approach there. But it's kind of my meditation. You know what I mean? Like at the end of the day, these days, now that I'm home, I'm finished here. I have a hot tub, you know, in my backyard. I take a little, you know, like toke, go in a different mindset and think at a different level. And that to me is kind of my meditation. And I think we all have to find these things, especially in today's world, to keep ourselves sane, whether it's taking a walk every day and listening to podcasts, or meditating, or, and I'm not advocating people turn to drugs, obviously. I have my conversation about drugs and, and how weed should not even be considered one, but
alcohol, marijuana too. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, marijuana, like, it shouldn't be a class A, but it's like, it's better than alcohol. But anyways, but my point is that we all, I think, need to figure out who we are, and then what we need to cope, to be to get through where we are and find happiness, whatever that means to you.
And what I discovered was it's not what I want, it's what I need. And I'm the kind of guy, I have a spreadsheet, and there's days I don't want to, but I keep track of how many push-ups I do every day, how many steps I take. And sometimes it's like annoying because I didn't do as many as yesterday, but keeping track of it, doing these little things, I realized I need to do. And by the way, you don't have to argue with me too much about weed. I'm a big investor in Caliva, who's Joe Montana, 75 million investor, and they're coming east, man. They're coming.
Love it, man. Love it. It's
Jay-Z,
coming.
They're chief what is he? Chief
evangelist or something. Yeah.
So I think that's great. We're getting towards the end of the podcast. I did want to, I asked you, what do you think was going on wrong maybe in the sales world that you kind of felt like should be going a different direction? What about you? What do you think anybody, I mean, not to say anyone's talking about you, but if they were, what would they say about John Barrows? And like, there's the way he's going about this or that is just, I don't agree with it.
Yeah, I mean, I think people, like, just like anybody, don't like my style. Some people, I mean, I'm pretty direct. I'm from, I grew up in Boston. I swear a lot. I call bullshit a lot on a lot of things. And, and a lot of people like are more traditional in their approach, and they just don't like my, you know what I mean? And I think that's just with anybody. But at the end of the day, going back to learning about who you are, I know who I am, and I'm real comfortable with it. And I know the value I bring to the table. And if you are going to judge, if you are going to shade your understanding of what I'm trying to bring as far as the value is concerned, based on I drop the F-bomb every once in a while, or I call bullshit on something that I thought was kind of ridiculous of what you were doing, then at first I felt, oh my God, I have to adjust and that type of stuff. But then I got very comfortable with knowing that I was, of the value that I brought to the right audience. Okay. Yeah. And so I think that, probably people would say, John, you got to tone it down a little bit, probably stop talking as much about weed, probably stop, swearing as much as you do. But, and professionally, I think that, I've had probably people in the past say, oh, there wasn't enough reinforcement and that type of thing. But again, it's how you slice this. It depends on how you look at training and those type of things. If you were looking for somebody else to solve your problem, then I'm not your guy. You know what I mean? If you're looking for somebody to help you with your problem, but you're going to take ownership of it, then I'm absolutely your guy, and I'm in it with, right? So, I think style approach is probably the thing that some people would say that they don't appreciate, but I'd say that's probably 95% is positive to saying they like my style and approach, where 5% is he's not really my style. And
that's kind of normal, right? I mean, 100% of the people out there aren't going to like me.
No. And as soon as you give that up, by the way, that's where, like, if you're on social and you're posting things and you're worried about the trolls, that one person that makes a bad comment on something, I used to go down that rabbit hole, you know what I mean? Same thing with reviews. Like when I would do a training and we would do the survey afterwards, I didn't care at all about all the positive stuff. I fixated myself on the negative. I'm like, oh my God, really? But then I would start to realize, like, that was 1 out of 35 people that I just trained, and all 35 of them thought it was awesome, and I'm this one guy. Or I did a post that got 100,000 views and 300 comments and 5 of them were negative because whatever. And I was like, oh, you know, and that type of stuff, you just let that shit go. You know, as long as you're coming from a good spot, my point is here is as long as your values are right and you're trying with all sincerity to do the right thing and help people, then you should never apologize or worry about what other people think of you.
Yeah. I'm in a phase right now where I'm just starting out and I'm getting a lot of followers, a lot of like DMs and business, but very little engagement on social. And I cared about that for a while. And now I'm just like, you know what? I'm not going to look at LinkedIn and Twitter as these you know, these sites that suck energy out of me.
Right.
I'm gonna look at them as I'm gonna say what I want, not, you know, not inappropriately, but speak from the heart. And
well, and look what happens there, because the same thing happened to me when I first went off on my own. You know, I had all these people saying, hey John, you know, give us your Twitter handle and we'll get you 10,000 Twitter followers. And I'm like, why do I want 10,000 random ass people following me on Twitter? Like, that's not what I'm interested in. So I took a very deliberate approach to only sharing content that I thought was valuable, you know, only posting when I, you know, not just a post. And I had the same thing, like early on, I got no engagement. Like it was like, I'd get 1, 2, 3 comments, but as you know, as I continued to do it, as I continued to really focus on doing what I thought was adding value and learning myself, you know, the people that did follow me were people that got value out of what I did. And all of a sudden now, after, you know, 6 years of doing this from a zero to where I am now, you know, the engagement on my stuff is through the roof compared to a lot of people, right? Because my audience isn't, I'm not everything to everybody. I am very specific with what I am and who I add value to, and that audience gets value out of it. And yeah, there's people that come in every once in a while that aren't really part of that circle, but that's the engagement that I look for. It's again, quality over quantity.
And I get a lot of value out of your stuff, and I see you on all the time. It's like, does this guy sleep or what?
Very little, but yeah.
And it's like if he's you know, spending this much energy on his job, he doesn't have any energy left to be bullshitting. I mean, you can't, there's no way, you know.
Nope,
so
there's no room for it. I got no room for bullshit at this point. Like even drama and stuff like that, I've cut so much out of my life that is not added value to it. Like just recently, I just couldn't deal with it. So I'm off of Facebook. I deleted the CNN app. I deleted MSNBC. I deleted all the news things because it was just negative time suck. Right. And I've removed a lot of people from my life as well because they were just negative people. And I'm just like, I'm sorry, I can't be around you.
Yeah, I'm in that same zone now. Hey, it's I want to be sensitive to time. I know you have a hard stop. Anything you want to promote for?
Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, if you go to jbarrows.com, you'll see all the stuff that we're doing. But if you go to jbarrows.com and then click training for individuals, we actually just launched a brand new on-demand platform that has all our stuff. It's Netflix style for $420 a year. So you'll appreciate it. So for $420 a year, you literally get everything that we train Salesforce, LinkedIn, Box, Google on. And, you know, we're having some fun building that community over there.
I saw that, and coming up is training on social, right?
Yep. Yeah, we're going to release Morgan and James have some courses coming up on that are about social and brand building, which are going to be big.
Well, I'll tell you what, no one except for my mom will listen to the whole 60 minutes of this podcast. So what I've been doing is just making kind of a highlight reel.
Okay, cool.
So I'll have the final edit done over the weekend, and I will send it to you before posting. But yeah, if you feel comfortable with it, it would be an honor if you posted it or
absolutely. Yeah. Just send it over to me. I'll make sure my team pushes it out there.
Okay, that's great. Hey, John, I really, really appreciated the conversation. It was an honor talking to you. I knew I was going to get a lot of value out of this conversation, and I really did. So
awesome. Thanks, Eric. I appreciate it, man. Have a good one.
All right, enjoy your night.
Cheers.
Bye.